All right, y'all, let's lock in. All right, so we got draw a triangle, and the triangle is HJK. It told us that H is 34, so that would go inside. Little j is opposite of big J, so that would be 7. And it also said little k is 10. Based on the information that we have right now, can I use the law of sines? Because when you take your test, it's not going to say use the law of sines and use the law of cosines. You have to know when is it a law of sines question and when is it a law of cosine question. So is this the law of sines? No, why not? What don't I have? I need a pair. I don't have a pair. I need to know an angle side pair. So I would have to know big H and little h, or big J and little j, or big K and little k. I don't have that. So this is law of cosines. So let's look at the law of cosines. Notice that the law of cosines, this is just variations of the exact same thing. All right. So basically, you depending on what you're trying to find, notice that whatever angle I end with, the side is what I start with. So if I'm looking for a little b, I have to end with big B. If I'm looking for a little c, I have to end with the big C. The only difference, this is the same formula, and I don't even know, like I feel like it's confusing to write it 3 different times, but that's the way it's written in the book. Also, you don't get any formulas. But whatever you're trying to find, you're going to put that first, and that's going to equal the other 2 sides. What does this remind you of if you just look at this part? A squared equals B squared plus C squared. What does that look similar to? Pythagorean theorem. So it's like the law of cosine starts off looking like the Pythagorean theorem. Then it's minus 2, whatever sides are here, times the cosine of A. Now we are going to use a lot of space. So notice that you got a lot of space for example 1. You could write above and below. Everybody look at me. You have space here and you have space here. So, because these are the same questions, okay? So when we're working it out, you might want to start at the top. I'm just telling you, just in case. I know some people, space is a problem. All right, so let's go back to the diagram we drew. Because I know big H, and that's the only angle I know, I have to start by finding little h. That's what I have to find. And I'm looking for little h, big J, and big K. That's what I'm trying to find. So I have to start with little h. So when I set up the law of cosines, it will be h squared, because that's what I'm trying to find. And that equals, what are the other 2 sides? What 2 letters did we use? J and K. So J squared plus K squared minus 2 JK. And then we end with the cosine of H. So that's how we would set up our formula. Now let's go ahead and start plugging in our numbers. Yes.
So how do we know if it's the little k or the big K or the little J?
I don't understand the question. But when you go here, if it's a lowercase, these are sides. And then the angles are at the end. You always see how the capital letters are at the end. So we start off with our sides. All of these are lowercase. See how these are lowercase letters? Those are all sides. And when we're taking the cosine, we don't take the cosine of a side, right? We would take the cosine of an angle, right? All right, so let's go ahead and finish this out. So we have h squared. And I'm going to start plugging in my numbers. So h squared equals j squared, which is 7 squared, plus k squared, which is 10 squared, minus 2 times 7 times 10, and then the cosine of big H. Now, if I were you, because I know that because H is squared, I'm going to actually have to type this in. I'm going to have to take the square root. If I were you, I would just type this whole thing in under a square root. And that's going to tell you what little h is. Now we're going to round everything to the thousandths place. So I need 3 numbers, not just one. Now I need 3. So type that in your calculator under a square root. And that way you can get the answer in one step. You can check against mine. Did you get 5.739? Yeah, use that calculator. I have to look at yours later. All right, so now that we know little h, we got to figure out what do we want to find next. Big J or big K? I always do alphabetical order, so I'm going to go with J. J comes before K. So now let's figure out how are we going to write that. Now, if I'm trying to find big J, everybody listen. If I'm trying to find big J, I need to start my equation with little j. Okay, so I'm going to write it out. It's going to start at j squared. Now it's the other two sides, which would be what? H and K minus 2 HK cosine of big J. So now let's start filling in our numbers. So we know little j is, what's little j? 7. And then I know we figured out little h was 5.739 plus k squared minus 2. Okay, so this is kind of long, but that's how you're going to set it up. Also, Tamaya, my answer is wrong. Just so you know, my answer for J and K is wrong, so you're going to have to fix it. All right, so this is, now when we're trying to use the law of cosine to find an angle, we can't just type it in one step. So we need to chunk this into 3 numbers. The first number would be this 7 squared. That's a separate number. And then this is another number, whatever you get there. We're going to type that in our calculator. And then this is another number. So I want you to put it in separately. So first you're going to find 7 squared. And then I'll talk about y in a minute. So using your calculator, well, you shouldn't need a calculator, but if you do, no judgment. 7 squared is 49. And that equals, now pick up your calculator, type in 5.739 squared plus 10 squared. Type in 5.739 squared plus 10 squared. Make sure you got what I got. That's what I got. Did you get 132.936?
I just didn't know which number to round to.
Everything is to the thousandths place. Yeah. And then minus, now let's figure out what this number is. 2 times 5.739 times 10. So here's the mistake that I don't want you to make, but I've been teaching this class for a long, long time. This is what a lot of people make. The big mistake is that they try to subtract these 2 numbers, but you can't. This is no different than if I were to tell you 5 equals 2 minus 3x. The same way you can't subtract the 2 minus 3 is the same reason we can't do that. So we have to subtract this number on both sides. So pick up your calculator. Take 49 minus 132.936. Did you get negative 83.936? And then what do you think I'm going to do here to separate these two? Divide it. So what you're going to have at that point is negative 83.936 over negative 114.78. And because I'm trying to find an angle, I have to take the inverse cosine of that to get angle J. Go ahead and type that in your calculator. And you do not have to put a negative over a negative because we know that's positive. It's not wrong if you do, but the calculator is going to automatically make these both pluses. So figure out what you get when you type this in. Inverse cosine, hit the fraction button. If you do it correctly, you should get 43.006. Anybody get that? All right, so now, how can I find the last one, K?
Add both and subtract 180.
Yep. So we know that for my last angle, which is angle K is going to equal 180 minus angle H, which they told us is 34. Minus angle J, which we figured out is 43.006. So type that in your calculator. And if you did it correctly, that should give you 102.994.